Hey guys, what's up? Shadow Hearts! Shadow Hearts! You have been requesting that series for a long time, and it is a franchise that I had been wanting to make since a long time ago, pretty much since I started these What the Hell Happened to videos. So Shadow Hearts is a very interesting series. Obviously, like many others, it doesn't exist anymore, and today we're gonna find out why. What the hell happened to Shadow Hearts? This is the only Shadow Hearts that I own. I used to have the other games, but I had to sell them in order to fund a trip that I made to England over a year ago. Sad news, right? But anyway, one is better than nothing, I guess. So let's begin. First, let's talk about Hiroki Kikuta, the guy who composed the music for the Secret of Mana games. He and some people working under Squaresoft left to form their own little company called Saknoth in order to develop a very unique game called Koudelka, released for the PS1 in 1999. Famous company SNK was the publisher in Japan, but it was Infogrames who took the game to the rest of the world. You won't believe this, but back then, this game was kind of hyped up. Lots of promotion was made, including a 3-volume manga and a special edition. There was a lot of background of the development of this game, considering it was a mixture of survival horror and strategy RPG, that it made a lot of noise in Japan. However, that wasn't the case anywhere else. Infogrames just kind of polished the game outside Japan and did almost zero marketing. To make matters worse, both players and critics gave mixed reviews about the game. Several problems with the battle system and the dark graphics led gamers to say that the game was just too slow, obscure, and boring. So it failed, and Kikuta resigned from his own company. Saknoth, however, didn't give up. Koudelka had been more or less successful, at least in Japan, and the company wanted to continue with the series. Since they couldn't just call the next game as Koudelka 2, they named it Shadow Hearts. The game was released in 2001 by a Rus company in Japan, and for the rest of the world, SNK had gone bankruptcy, so they were out of the question. It was Midway. Yep, the same people we know for publishing Mortal Kombat, before they went bankruptcy too in 2010. In any case, Shadow Hearts was released for the PS2 and followed not directly the events of Koudelka, taking place 15 years later in 1913 during the pre-World War I initial conflicts in Europe. So very much like its predecessor, it mixed elements of dark fantasy with real history, but it was now slightly alienated from the survival horror genre, becoming a pure turn-based RPG with the famous Judgment Ring system, which is nowadays considered as one of the most unique and innovative battle systems in RPGs. This game was awesome, and it led the way to a cult-following fanbase many years later. But the sad news is that back in 2001, when it was released, it also received mixed criticism. The reviews weren't as harsh as the ones with Koudelka, so it literally had done better, at least. In 2004, Shadow Hearts Covenant was released, still developed by Saknoth, but now under the name Nautilus to avoid further conflict with Hiroki Kikuta. It was a game published by Arus in Japan and Midway in North America and Europe. Covenant was a direct sequel to the first Shadow Hearts, and it did so well that it is now considered as one of the best JRPG sequels ever made, mainly because it was very well received by critics and players alike, becoming a commercial success. Now, without spoiling anything, the only negative aspect the players complained about was the relationship between the ending of the first game and the events of Covenant. So that led to a little discontent between the developers and the gamers, but nonetheless, the fact was that Covenant was even more awesome than the first two games and positively received. It still maintained that dark atmosphere, those gothic themes, some horror elements, etc. It was a great game. On a side note, 3 of its characters were invited to the crossover Chaos Wars, an excellent strategy RPG, infamous for its atrocious voice acting in English, and a pretty underrated game nowadays. Anyways, the next year, the world met Shadow Hearts from the New World. And here is where things got miserably screwed up. First of all, it was published until 2006 by Exceed Games and not by Midway in North America, even though in there it had been published once again by a Rus company. And in Europe it had been published by Ghostlight in 2007. So 3 different publishers for 3 different regions of the world. Second, the game's setting was not in Europe anymore. It was now in America in 1929. Nautilus has never explained if this was a sequel to Covenant, a third main part in the series, or simply a spin-off, considering how little connection it had with the other Shadow Hearts games. It does have several ties to them, but none that is mainly important plot-wise. Third, probably the worst of all, the game's atmosphere was now completely different than before. It felt as if it was an entirely different game, exempt of almost all dark and gothic tones the first games had. The main character was even more of a joke, mainly for comic relief purposes, and most of the cast was quite similar in a fashion. This is why many people preferred to believe that this was nothing but a spin-off. Regardless of that, the game had not been as well received as Covenant, but positively criticized nonetheless. In any case, everybody was still hoping for a true third main game in the series, which never happened. Nautilus disbanded in 2007. Most of its members went to be a part of Field Plus, a company that co-developed Lost Odyssey with Mistwalker, also working on other games like No More Heroes for the PS3. Now let us understand a little the company Midway. It's not to blame for the demise of the series, but even though the first 2 games, especially Covenant, had been well received, sales didn't reach high enough numbers for them to continue publishing the series. Quitting might have made a strong impact on the video game business market, considering the fame they had at least in North America. But the absolute truth is, Shadow Hearts was never successful to begin with. I seriously remember this franchise being extremely unknown and underrated back in 2007 after the third game had been released. Nowadays, it's pretty well known thanks to a strong fan base that it has acquired over the years, but it wasn't like this before. If we add the fact that every single game in the series, including Koudelka, even though being developed by the same company, have been made by different people every single time, and if we speculate on the internal conflict some of its key members probably had since the time Kikuta was in charge, our conclusion is to believe that all these problems contributed to the franchise's demise. Arus still has the rights to Shadow Hearts, but the development team doesn't exist anymore and its members are now scattered everywhere, so a new game seems almost impossible to hope for. Not even for mobile phones. Shadow Hearts will be forever remembered as one of the most iconic and beloved JRPG franchises out there, with a very solid fanbase and a legacy of dark fantasy elements and very innovative battle systems. We probably won't ever see a new game again of this series, but we will at least go back every once in a while to the fantastic trilogy Nautilus left us with. So today the topic is still open to speculation, but now we have a very solid theory on what the hell happened to Shadow Hearts. So Arus, however it is pronounced, they own the rights to Shadow Hearts. These are the guys who disbanded Nautilus. They just told them to fuck off. Or I don't know. But the thing is that, do you want to know what these people make nowadays? Arus. Slot machines. Pachinko machines. Yeah. These are the guys who own the Shadow Hearts rights. Well, that's it, guys. This is what, in my opinion, happened to Shadow Hearts. We learned today what the hell happened to the series, and I am very interested in knowing your opinion, your research, your investigation, your thoughts, anything related to this fantastic franchise. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time.